Welcome to another episode of Southern Arizona's Nonprofits, the superheroes impacting our community. We're broadcasting on the Tucson Business Channel, a division of Mark Bishop Media, from the Stewart Title corporate offices on Broadway. And this episode is brought to you by SCIP, SSCIP, the Social Service Contractors Indemnity Pool, ensuring nonprofits like ours for more than 3 decades. And I'm Barbara McClure, Executive Director of Impact to Southern Arizona, host of the show. And with me today, I have Dr. Jen McCormack, Senior Director of Research and Development from the Native American Advancement Foundation, otherwise known as NAAF. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here. I really appreciate the invite. And I wanted to make sure that even though I am the only one here in the studio, I give props to the team. My team is hard at work. The NAAF team is hard at work in the GuVo district at the Tohono O'odham Nation. Our Chief Executive Officer is Jordan Evans. Selena Jesus, our Senior Director of Programs and Tribal Relations. Monica Cleveland, our Director of Student Services and the GuVo Community Remote Learning Center. And Adriana Fitz, she's our Program Coordinator and one of our educators who integrates STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math with Tohono O'odham language, culture, and ecology in the Sonoran Desert.
Sounds exciting. Well, I'm so glad to have you here today. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
I personally am so enamored with the Native American culture, which started really early in my life when I was young. So I think this is an important piece of work your group is doing, and I was happy to just share this with our community. And so I was going to ask you, first of all, to tell everyone, what is the work of NAAF? And of course, as I see it, and as it's written, GuVo, it's a capital G-U, capital V-O, district of the Tohono O'odham Nation. And I know it's pronounced differently by the natives.
Oh, no, that's beautiful. We are the far southwest district, the GuVo district on the Tohono O'odham Nation, which is the second largest native nation in the United States in land size. It's approximately the size of the state of Connecticut and really is the sacred geography for Southern Arizona. The name Tucson is Tohono O'odham, and so much of what we love and are part of in this geography is Tohono O'odham. NAAF is, I'm so honored to be representing NAAF, but NAAF is really a community-based 501c3, and that is what is so unique and exciting about NAAF is it was begun by community members and families and students in the GuVo district of the Tohono O'odham Nation. Really in 2009, a lot of conversations about education and priorities for education for youth and preschoolers and adults, and wanting to base any type of programming from a Tohono O'odham perspective, using research methodologies and data collection and Tohono O'odham language and culture that really reflects the community. And we became a 501c3 in 2011. So this is actually our 10-year anniversary this year, which is thank you. It's sort of a happy birthday to everyone. And I will try to be a little more concise, but we started as an education nonprofit, but really we do a lot of programming. So our hallmark program is our after-school program, and it is an integration of academics, enrichment academics. As I mentioned before, we do a lot of STEM, Tohono O'odham language and culture, spearheaded by Selena and Addie. Selena is a fluent speaker in the Western dialects and integrates all type of language learning with science, which we know is something that really motivates students to learn and be part of ecology and culture and your own identity. We also have a summer adventure program. That's where we like to take students on field-based experiences. You're seeing science and culture in action, and that includes both Tohono O'odham sacred geography, Oregon Pipe, National Park, all the beautiful bits of the Sonoran Desert, Hashan. We were talking before the radio began about, the saguaro cactuses, which is such a symbol of this area. These are Tohono O'odham, Hashan or Baidich, which is the fruit and the beginning of the new year. But we also take the students in the summer adventure program to a lot of academic and science sites, biosphere and so forth. This was all pre-COVID.
Sure.
We have adult learning programs, both for GEDs and graduate solutions for learning providing, for being able to secure a diploma. We have a nonprofit food entity called The Store, where we're really looking at providing opportunities to access food and essential supplies. We are a really remote district. We're 2.5 hours west of Tucson. We're about 75 miles west of Sells, which is the basically the de facto capital of the Tohono O'odham Nation, where a lot of the services are. We also provide animal care. We do a lot with, as I said before, language preservation. We have a project called the EMIG Project, which is a community-based language preservation and revitalization project. We've been doing a lot with gardens. We have a project called Ruth's Garden that started last year, right before the pandemic, or Ruth's Oedig, which is about traditional farming and, teaching students, again, that integration between STEM and culture and the desert. And then I mentioned with Monica being the Director of Student Services, as a response to COVID, we began the GuVo Community Remote Learning Center in collaboration with GuVo Community and all of our district partners. And this is very much because of our location. Telecommunications, a lot of digital technology, which all students rely on now, no matter where you are in the U.S., right?
Sure.
COVID or not, we need it for education, but we've made that a big priority with that.
That must be very challenging, though, out so far, because even us in Catalina, we are remote enough that we, in a survey, found out that 75% of our families had computers, but only 50% had internet. Because of the cost of internet, but also some live far enough out where it's difficult to get internet. So Barbara, how do you deal with that where you are?
That's exactly it. I was just going to say, wow, we also did 2 surveys in the summer, right, last year with COVID, to really assess what exactly as you all did, sort of what technology did our students' families have, and then what was the connectivity. And exactly as you said, there are spots. GuVo District has 4 communities. There's GuVo, there's Kugach, there is Puig and Adichuk, and my colleagues on the team will absolutely, I wish they were here to correct my pronunciation. I'm originally from Baltimore, so unfortunately I will botch. I'm an East Coast mispronouncing, so I apologize. But our 2 larger communities do have a little bit more connectivity access than some of the smaller ones, but it is a big challenge, connectivity. And then, I don't know if you found this with your colleagues, when it comes to students, we have a lot of students who had iPhones or tablets, but with Arizona public education platforms, you have to have a laptop to be able to access, right? So just being able to get your school assignments done and sent back to the teacher for review requires just crazy infrastructure.
It is amazing. That's just one of the changes in education over decades, really, where everything has to be posted online.
Yes.
We actually had a young man in our group who was a senior in high school, and he typed a final term paper on his cell phone because he did not have access. And, they're great with their thumbs. It takes me a long time to type and correct because my fingers are all over the letters. I can't imagine typing a term paper. But they're so resourceful. That's just what he had to do.
Yes.
And for him, it became the norm. But one of the things that we did is we partnered with the Oro Valley Rotary and the families that did not have internet, which, as you say, for education is so important. And with kids having to do school at home during COVID, how were these families that didn't have internet going to even function?
Yeah.
And so we partnered and found the families who didn't have internet. Our local Rotary, Oro Valley Rotary, paid for internet services for a year for those families so that they could have that access at home. So that was a huge change in what those families could accomplish with their education.
Beautiful collaboration too. That's really wonderful. And you mentioned the resourcefulness of the student with the term paper. I think that he's got colleagues in Gua'au District. These students are amazing. What they have been doing with whether it's pads, handwritten, phone, making it happen. We have a few students where, and our founder and board president, Susan Cormack, will often share this story. This is in the community of Peoik. There are a couple of students who will get connectivity if they actually do a hike up a small hill in a mountain, and talk about dedicated students who are doing incredible hard work, and then we'll climb up a little hill to send that off to the teacher.
Gosh, especially in the summertime or the monsoon.
Summer, exactly. Yeah. They are so amazing. I'm so in awe of our students, really.
Gosh, that's so fun. Well, I know for a lot of people, they may not be familiar with the nation or kind of what that area looks like. Yeah. And because we're on the radio and we're on a podcast, people are listening, but they don't have a picture in their mind. So I wondered if you could kind of help paint a picture of what it's like there. What's the landscape look like,
Sure.
the types of housing and things like that?
So again, I am based in the Tucson office, and because of distance and the beginning of the school year, I don't want to speak for the whole team, but I can tell you, we are the far southwest district. We're right on the U.S.-Mexico border, incredibly beautiful part of the Sonoran Desert with mountains and hills. You can imagine right now after the monsoons, it is beautiful in bloom. I am really honored to go out and visit. You also have the gardens that are growing. We have all the different cactus and incredible wildlife. We do have, like I said, the sort of the store structure, and the Native American Advancement Foundation has a couple of small buildings. We have both an office and then our nonprofit store. Really big garden, which is cultivated on the autumn calendar and seasons, and then the remote learning center, which is basically a small modular unit that's connected to the internet, has computers and school supplies. We began it, like I said, last year under Monica Cleveland's direction and in collaboration with Gua'au community and our families. And we use Center for Disease Control and Prevention protocol to be able to use it. So we'll have families or students that are within one unit will use the facility, whether it's getting the connectivity or the school supplies, all ages. Monica has a teaching team, both Maisie and Melina, who also help on anything from preschool to high school. The amazing thing, too, is they have really connected with all of our regional schools. That's another thing that Tohono O'odham Nation, because it is so large, we have both schools from the Bureau of Indian Education as well as Title 15 Arizona schools with districts. So with all of that, you have different protocols and connectivity. We are let me see. I would kind of go back to painting the picture too. The district is, like I said, it's really beautiful, mountain-wise, and with all of the wildlife. We have one road. It's Federal Route 1 that kind of cuts off from Highway 86, and that will take you from Highway 86 down to the border. And there are no sidewalks, and that's a big reason why our skateboarding group, the indoor skateboarding group, has been working so hard to build a skate park because we need some paved spaces for them to skateboard. It's
kind of hard to exercise on a highway. Sure.
Oh, sure. Because we don't have as many paved roads, we deal with monsoon flooding and so forth. So sort of the beautiful bits of the desert, but also the seasonal challenges.
Sure. How many people are in the district, live in the district, would you say?
Let me see. I think based on the Tohono O'odham Nation Enrollment Office, there's 2,547 members that are enrolled for the Gua'au district. And then I would say probably in residence, it depends, anywhere I think from 800 to 1,000. And it can depend on times of year and so forth. Sure.
Transient, moving about.
Yeah. School year. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I don't know a lot. I only moved here in 2008. So we have been through it. I mentioned to you earlier, my husband took me into the desert on an event for a 50th birthday. And we went out and picked the fruit with the Tohono O'odham people, and we harvested the saguaro fruit, and then we came back and we made jam ate Nopalitos and did some really fun things that we had just moved here. So it was a very exciting, fun way to kind of relate to the desert.
Yes. NAAF just had our Bidich Harvest Camp. In a non-COVID, you'll have to come join us. Our students went out and picked the Hashana, the Soro fruit, using, traditional methods. And
we did the same with Soro ribs and knocked them off and caught them in a hat. And it was very, very fun.
Oh, I bet your jam was delicious.
It really was. It was a lot of fun. But I think it's just a neat part of the culture. I think when I was growing up I grew up in Southern California, so in the Los Angeles area back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. So, in that generation, and it was such a wonderful place. And for me personally, my favorite place to be as a young girl was to go down to the Southwest, at the time I think it was called the Southwest Indian Museum, and just spend the whole day walking through these collections that Charles Loomis had put together of all of these different Native Americans who lived in the Southwest. So it wasn't just California, but it was Arizona and all the Plains Indians. And it was just the most wonderful place to spend a day. So it really ingrained me to that Native culture and just an appreciation of how diverse it was from the way I grew up, and so many unusual things. And since then, we've just, as a family, done all kinds of things related to the Native American culture. So it's a fun thing for me to see that there is a group here in Tucson who is really focused on keeping that culture and building the capacity, to keep that culture alive. And I love that you guys are doing all that. So it's just so fun to share it. And I appreciate you telling us more about that, Tohono O'odham.
There's the Tohono O'odham Nation has an amazing cultural center and museum. Again, I think during COVID it's closed, but it is so wonderful. We really enjoy working with our colleagues there. And it's a great way to look both at sort of historic and traditional and also contemporary Tohono O'odham art and so forth. So that's a great space for listeners to know. They have a really beautiful website, too. I don't think they're open right now during COVID, but it is a really great space.
Sure. Is it in cells?
It is a little bit, here I am, I'm going to do the geography. It's not technically in cells, but it is more, I believe, everyone on my team, I wish someone was here.
They would have the exact
I think
answer.
It is a different district.
Sure.
But if you look up Tohono O'odham Cultural Center and Museum, like I said, it's a gorgeous website and it will give you all the details. And I don't think it is in technically cells, but you will be very close by.
Well, we'll check it out, and maybe we'll put it on as a link with this show,
so that love to share that.
The listeners can learn more about it, especially those who live in the Tucson area who might like to go learn a little more.
And I know they have done some amazing collaborations with the Herd Museum up in Phoenix. Wonderful. And I believe there is also a really beautiful short film that they made with the Herd Museum showing also the relationship for all O'odham people with the ocean and being able to go and go on that sort of annual trip. And it's a really beautiful, it's on YouTube, listeners. If you look up Tohono O'odham Cultural Museum and Herd Museum, it's a really beautiful short film.
Oh, that would be interesting. Living here in the desert, I don't think of them as being a nation that has a connection to the water.
Yeah.
And after Southern California, we moved to Washington. Mm-hmm. So we spent 15 years dealing with Native Americans who were nothing but related to the water, fishermen and all those things on the shoreline. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of interesting to think of them as relating to the ocean.
Professor Ophelia Zepeda, who is a Tohono O'odham poet and linguist at the University of Arizona, she has an amazing series of poetry connecting the desert to water and rain, and I highly recommend her work. It's wonderful.
Oh, I'll look into it. Thank you. Well, I think I have a good picture in my head of the district, and I was thinking you were talking about all these students, and so how did your students adapt, and how did NAAF help support the students during COVID? Because as we said, digital connection was challenging for many children in school during that.
Barbara, you nailed it. That was really, and we began incredibly quickly. on knowing that that was going to be a challenge. I think when COVID became very real, sort of in March of last year, NAAF did a couple of things to mobilize really fast. One is that after-school program that I mentioned, which is really a face-to-face delivery. We began delivering it remote to every family in the district. So we sort of doubled our participants, and that included, daily meal service and enrichment learning. While we were doing that, I mentioned the rest of my team, Selena, Susan, Jordan, developed different evaluations for finding out what did people have technology-wise and what were people going to need and what did people want and how we were going to connect that to what the schools were going to provide, what the Arizona Department of Education or the Bureau of Indian Education had. I mentioned Susan, who is our founder and the NAAF board president. I know she attended a lot of state meetings where, as you mentioned, everyone from all over the state talked about the digital divide. And just as you mentioned, Barbara, sort of while Arizona has basically 2 big metropolis areas, maybe 3. I don't. We are such also a really rural state in so many ways, and all over the state, people were talking about this digital divide. So we really participated on those statewide conversations, as well as Tohono O'odham Nation Department of Education has been an amazing partner with us since the beginning as well. So we did a lot of talking with everyone. We did district evaluation. We talked to our amazing partners at the schools we work with, which is San Simon School, Tohono O'odham High School, Baba Kiver Unified School District, and Aho Unified School District. We have students there. Sort of everybody just kind of jumped in, like, how are we going to tackle this? And then at the same time, NAAF works, we have great partners over at the Harvard Project on American Indian Economic Development. Megan Hill and Melissa Yazzie were talking to us about how we were dealing particularly with COVID and education and technology. And they worked very closely with Google, and the Harvard Project and Google were developing some technology skills called the Toolbox. And they were talking to Native nations all over the U.S. and Canada of how is everyone dealing with this digital divide, this technology challenge in all areas, education, health, economy. And so we ended up using some of the tools that the Yurok Nation, which is a Northwest-based Native nation, developed for language preservation and schools. And we said, you know what, they are offering remote resources. We're not going to do the same thing because this is Tohono O'odham language and the particularities of GuVo district and our students, but this idea of a remote toolbox for students, remote resources. And then through our collaboration with Harvard Project and Google, they wanted to do a short film with us. Which we shot guerrilla style. So there was, Google had a freelance filmmaker who was so wonderful. She sort of gave us a filmmaking school remotely in the middle of COVID. And then Selena Jesus, Adriana Fitz, and some of our amazing student families, Ronalda, her oldest daughter, Autumn, and all of the younger ones in the family shot this incredible footage of what it's like to do remote technology in GuVo district during COVID, and what are the challenges, and then how the students rallied in the most amazing, incredible way. And we ended up receiving a Webby Award for that film with Google and with Harvard Project.
Oh, fun. Congratulations.
And then in that conversation, Google did want to also donate some laptops to our students, is sort of seeing how very real the technology divide was, but also the incredible innovations and dedication of our students and their families.
That is exciting. I know I was at an event this morning and a teacher was speaking about the COVID experience, and she was saying, it frustrated her that so many people called it the wasted year.
Yes.
And she was talking about how children rose to the occasion and how they innovated and how they bonded as teams. And they came out of it so strong and really appreciating school, those especially who were in school learning still. And it was kind of an interesting perspective, because I think the viewpoint is, well, everybody's going to be behind. And she was commenting that they'd done scores, testing and the data, and showed that they had learned, and that they had learned and grown in ways that were kind of unexpected.
That is so beautiful. That really makes my heart and mind so happy to hear that from a teacher. Wow.
I know, that's neat, because kids are very resilient, and they do just adapt. Most of the time, I think they embrace it and they go with change easier than the adults do.
Well, as you mentioned, and that wonderful teacher mentioned too, using the challenges to innovate, right? I think I mentioned Selena and Addie developing Ruth's Garden, right? This outdoor learning space. So indoor, not safe, technology, we're dealing with these technical things, but guess what? We're going to create this outdoor classroom where we're going to talk Tohono O'odham language, we're going to talk science, and we are going to grow watermelon and talk about how it is a Tohono O'odham fruit from pre-contact era and what the different Tohono O'odham recipes and names are. And, what was so wonderful about it is it became something where parents and students were like, do the garden again, do it bigger this year, do it in more sites. So exactly, like, how do we innovate?
Yeah, we one of our favorite summer recipes is something we call the Three Sisters salad.
Yes.
And so it's the Three Sisters gardening concept of the Native Americans.
Beautiful. Corn,
beans, and squash, and how you grow them all together and they protect each other, and one becomes the vine for the beans, come up the corn stalk. And really those flavors together are amazing. And when you think about it, you're just putting together ingredients in a salad. But when you recognize that it goes back so many generations, and really that it comes from the Native Americans, it's extra fun when we serve it.
That's really beautiful. Have you all been to the San Javier Co-op Farm? It's listeners. This is at the San Javier Mission District, and it is this amazing Tohono O'odham farm where you can get exactly all of them.
That's fun. Well, I think this is a good opportunity. We'll take a quick break and we'll get to hear from our sponsor, Skip.
Today's program is brought to you by Skip, the Social Service Contractors Indemnity Pool. Skip is a member-owned, member-directed insurance provider with more than 3 decades of insuring Arizona social service organizations for their property, general and professional liability, and auto claim exposures. With an Arizona-based staff of claim underwriting and risk management professionals, Skip specializes in providing personalized service, affordable premiums, and coverage which meets and often exceeds the state of Arizona's contract requirements for social service providers. For more information, visit our website at www.sscip.org or ask your insurance agent about protecting your organization with insurance coverage through Skip.
And we're back. And we are talking with Dr. Jen McCormack from the Native American Advancement Foundation, NAAF. So we've been talking about what it's like to be in the, I'm going to say GuVo district, but really, will you tell me again how it's said when you are in the GuVo district?
I think GuVo. Again, I am not the language teacher for our staff, so I would never. I think that's beautiful, Barbara.
It's so funny because I grew up learning French and Latin. So, even Spanish, it's like the different rolls with the tongue and everything is in a different place than it is with the language, your first language. So
absolutely.
I may never get that exactly.
No,
correctly,
beautiful.
But so you were talking about the Remote Learning Center,
yes,
the RLC, and we talked about some of the barriers that we had in education during COVID. But what about some of the barriers that the other programs that NAAF puts on? What were some of those? How was that affected by COVID? And what are you doing today as we hopefully move through it and on to the next, kind of back to the new normal?
That's right. Well, I so appreciate you asking. I think a lot has to do with technology and geography. I've mentioned our flagship program, the After School program, which has really gotten integrated with the Remote Learning Center. And I think a big thing is our team really loves doing the face-to-face learning, whether it is in our outdoor classrooms or the content that we do in the classroom, which is academic, primary prevention, health and wellness with Indigenous Indigenous models, language, being able to go on those field trips in the summer to Biosphere and Organ Pipe and all of the beautiful sacred geography on Tohono O'odham Nation. And then I think I mentioned our 2 adult learning programs as well, our GED and Graduate Solutions technology, making sure that our students had everything. Now, I do know, and I am so going to brag about our students again.
Yes, that should.
I know those adult students have been incredible, and I have heard from, instructors and so forth. They have been working the hardest, like regionally, and staying on top of things despite connectivity issues or maybe getting laptops a little bit later. And NAAF has a really great collaboration with Pima Community College, Tohono O'odham Community College, and the International Sonoran Desert Alliance. There's an MOU that our Senior Director of Programs and Tribal Relations, Selena Jesus, was really instrumental in creating, so that when our adult students do complete these secondary accreditation, there's lots of choices post-secondary, whether that's college, professional training, and so forth. And just a big shout out to our regional partners, PCC, TOCC, and ISTA for having all of these options. And then I think connectivity even for the opposite age too, preschoolers. We were invited by the amazing Make Way for Books, which I know is one of your partners as well.
Yes.
Getting those early reading programs, and we were so honored to collaborate with them. And there's so much that is not technology based, backpacks full of good books, but also creating spaces for parents and the young ones to connect online and just making sure people were able to connect. We also are such a remote geography that I would say the worst days of the pandemic, we also really needed to get essential services, supplies, food, household items, and so forth, particularly for our elders. And that's another way that the team rallied with GuVo District and our regional partners to provide some of those really basic services and making sure that our elders are taken care of. The elders of GuVo District are really cultural experts. They're the caretakers of language and tradition, and so important. And, wanting to make sure that they were able to access everything when, I don't know if you remember, Barbara, but remember the worst parts of the pandemic, there were shortages on supplies,
oh, gosh, yes.
Right? Even here in Tucson. So your geography and then NAAF's geography, like when you're remote, it's even tougher. So,
oh, sure. It would just be absolutely multiplied. I mean, I think about
right.
We look back, and we were talking about this morning about the toilet paper shortage.
Yes, right.
And it's just interesting because we had purchased some industrially as soon as it hit, as soon as we started recognizing it at home, because we thought our food bank clients who don't have income and,
right.
They go to the store and there's nothing and they don't have other resources, we were really kind of concerned. So we bought all of this toilet paper through an industrial. Some of the people in our community are like, is that where it all went to the market? No, we didn't go down to the market to buy it. But we had it shipped in, and then we gave toilet paper to every family for a couple of months.
Wow.
Because it was just, you couldn't get it. And the same thing with our seniors. Like you said, they weren't going to go anywhere.
No.
And so we had to do some things to get supplies to them. And your comment about preschoolers is interesting. My husband was on a school board in a rural community, and they said that the children who came to kindergarten, 70% had not had a book read to them. And I thought, that can't be possible. That's such a huge number. We were pretty sure it was a typo, but it was true. And so just the concept of getting books, like you said, make way for books. And to get all those books into children's hands is so important. And I love that you're doing, current books and cultural books and all kinds of things. Yeah. So it's exciting. I think it's exciting what you do for the community. And one of my thoughts was, I know you must do something for economic growth in the district. So what are you doing for adults, or how does that work? Because I would think, I'm not sure, do people stay in the district, or do you find, in Tucson, we often say the young people in Tucson, they get out of college and they leave Tucson. How do we get people to stay in Tucson? So, and I would think it would be similar on the Native American side. They grow up in that culture, but they also want to see what's outside the nation and maybe not stay or leave and come back. So is there a lot of economic opportunity or development there that... Because I thought that NAAF did some work with that as well.
We do. No, you're right on. And I also just wanted to, give you props for you guys taking care of your elders and so forth too. Like those necessities were major. NAAF has been working with economic development. And again, I have to give props to all the community families and my colleagues who really are the engine behind NAAF, because I know the entire team, Jordan, Susan, Selena, have been working hard with economic development, and again, working so closely with the amazing Udall District and all 4 communities. A lot, I'd say, is capacity building, right? So we talked a little bit about education, and we talk a lot about there is both, building capacity on the nation, within the districts, and then also great relationships kind of back and forth with metropolitan areas and so forth, and our partners in education. We have a new burgeoning project where we, and some of this came out of the small garden that I talked about, and, Tohono O'odham culture is an agricultural culture, right? This is really the essence of how kind of the beauty of the Sonoran Desert and, the beautiful vegetables that you were mentioning and so forth. And so we're working really closely with several partners to expand the agricultural capacities. And one of our board members, who is also a community council member, Priscilla Thomas, who has a wealth of traditional farming knowledge. And we're also working really closely with folks from USDA and Department of Interior to really kind of investigate traditional farming projects, something that makes sense of our beautiful geography. Culturally, it answers a lot of food questions that people have, and it is a really traditional way to be in this geography. The southernmost community in Udall District, Adichuk, or has Manager's Dam, which, your listeners may know Manager's Dam, and we're working on repairs with that and sort of how, that used to be connected to irrigation. And so there's lots of different ways we kind of think about that. We do business training as well, and that's very much part of Selena's program with GED and Graduate Solutions. We offer a couple of internships for professional development skills too. And we just welcomed another new intern about 2 weeks ago. So there's a lot of that. And then working with the district and Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona. There's been a lot of capacity building for employment with different members of Udall District in that area.
Oh, that's nice. It would seem like a lot of people might, I think the vision of what it looks like out there and that geography, and like you say, there's farming, but is there more than farming? Yeah. So I think that would be a challenge to keep some of those youngsters there.
You know that you bring up the youth again, and I got sidetracked with the farming. We have some incredible young people who have technology and design skills too.
Oh, I imagine.
Yes. Yeah. So, listeners, I am wearing a shirt that was designed by some of our amazing young people, the Indoor Skate Group. They have designed their own logos. There's a lot of artists. They have done some amazing fundraisers. So they're a combination of what I would say are young graphic designers with technology skills, but also fundraising. And our group, the Indoor Skate Park Group, has worked really closely with the district. They've presented their ideas. So they've worked in areas of policy and legislation. They did research on how do you develop a public space? What do you want it to look like? How is it going to be integrated with the Sonoran Desert environment? All these types of things. So there's that kind of like project training in diverse skills for young people. And we have been so in awe of the young people becoming young leaders in this. Just have to give it up for Jacob, MJ, River, Janie, Maisie, Melina, Adnan, and Rose, just to name a few of the young people who are just killing it.
That's so fun. And I think that nowadays one of the things that really did come out of COVID was the realization that you can work remotely.
Yeah.
And so I imagine for these students who are really talented in graphic design or in IT capabilities can work remotely and have jobs and projects off the nation, but still live in the nation. And that is a pretty exciting opportunity these days.
Absolutely.
Sure. I have two boys in the IT industry, and they worked remotely through COVID, through the whole thing, so, and still aren't really back in the office. So it really did change how we all perceive that. So you don't, your location does not really have to define what you do anymore. So that probably will work to the advantage for those kids.
You nailed it, Barbara, both with what you were sharing about your sons. Exactly. And then we have seen, right, in economic development and different policy studies of where we're all going is that the work week has changed. The location has changed. The hour has changed. And then even types of employment, right? So, yeah, I think that it's actually a really, I think young people can kind of design it at this point.
Oh, I think they can.
So.
That's it.
We just have to make sure they've got the resources, the connectivity, and the space to learn that they need.
There you go. And I think you nailed that. I think that's where nonprofits come in.
Yeah.
Because, you and I are both grant writers. So we have that ability to bring the resources together for those kids that have these visions.
Yes.
And for the communities that we serve. And I think that's really the important part of the work that nonprofits in Tucson do. There's so many of us, thousands of nonprofits here, that we really have a huge effect on the community. And I think a lot of the public doesn't really realize it.
Yes.
They just see that everybody's buzzing around, but don't realize what's behind the scenes in all of it. So,
no, you said that so beautifully, Barbara. I always get to talk to the team as the grant writers. Like, you guys are the A-list. You are the rock stars. I'm the roadie, but I love being the roadie because I get to tell the stories of this amazing stuff that is being done, whether it is the cool young people or, Selena designing a language revitalization project with the elders, or Monica talking to students of all different levels and helping hook them up with financial aid. It's kind of like we get to brag all the time.
Sure, it is.
About amazing people.
You're right. We are story writers, storytellers.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you then, because I know you just had a fundraising event, or was it a grand opening of your skate park?
Yes, it's kind of been an ongoing. That's so nice of you, Barbara. Well, yeah, we've had some ongoing grants come in for the skate park. Exactly.
Sure. And you said it's indoors.
It's actually outdoors.
Oh, it is. Okay.
The park will be. We're going to have hopefully groundbreaking October. Right. I am knocking the wood. That was that sound. If it picked up on the mic.
Intentional.
Yes, and it will be the first skate park on the Tohono O'odham Nation.
Oh, so exciting.
Yes. But yeah, thank you for asking. This is a skate park. The Endure Group has been working really hard with NAAF. They reached out to Native American Advancement Foundation back in 2017. And Susan and Selena and Jordan have been working with Endure for 3 years. And last year, we finally got some of those big grants that are going to be able to pour the concrete. The Tony Hawk Foundation's The Skate Park Project grant.
What a great backer, Tony Hawk.
Oh, yeah. They have been amazing.
The skateboard.
And the PTM Foundation, or Portugal the Man, the band, worked with the Skate Park Project, Tony Hawk Foundation, to match that. And then the amazing Fiesta Bowl Foundation up in Phoenix did too. So both on sort of a national and state level, amazing support for the skate park.
That is exciting. I think people who not everybody values skateboarders, and especially if you live in the city and you're trying to get down the sidewalk and they're in your way, or they're grinding on your concrete curb, But I think we had a skate park where we used to live up in the Seattle area. And though our boys they weren't big skateboarders because we lived in a community that also did not have sidewalks. But we would just go sit at the park and watch these kids do these amazing tricks. And it was just, even as a form of public entertainment, it was interesting.
Yes.
And they built an actual graffiti wall. And so part of the skateboard park was the graffiti wall. And every time you would drive by, it would look different. It was just layers and layers of paint. And all these kids who could, just release their artistic talents.
Magic.
And then, a week later it was gone and somebody else had covered it up. But it was a very fun look into the community to be at that park. So that is just going to be such a neat project for your community. And I know it takes forever to put those things in place, and it's hard because, of course, if you're with children, you're trying to do things. This was how I felt in school. We would, as a PTA president, that we would say, we really want to get something done in the school day. Well, some people like to dive in the deep end, but a lot of people like to walk in the shallow end and take their time. And we said, but we're in school and we don't have 3 or 4 years for things to develop because our kids will be out of elementary, although they'll be out of junior high. They're only in junior high for 3 years. And high school is so fast. When you get to high school, suddenly you've graduated. So I think for these kids who are young and excited about skateboarding, and then the vision is there and the excitement is there, but the realization of it is so far in the future, and to keep their attention and keep that up that's kind of tough for kids, I think.
Oh, that is so lovely the way you put it. And I really wish my colleague Selena Jesus was here, because she's been the one that's been working with Endure for the last 3 years. And she would have real insights. But I know from what she shared and the young people, that's exactly it. When you are young, right? Time is very different. And they've been working so hard. They did so much of their own fundraising with the grants. Exactly, it is a response to a real immediate need, right? Like, you want an amazing place for them to hang out and skateboard, or they also, if there's going to be scooters. And what's so great about Endure is they are like all ages, all skills, all genders. I've seen the older ones teaching the younger ones, but they do need a space to be able to do it. And they need the space yesterday, really, exactly as you said. And you also mentioned something so beautiful about that graffiti wall. Endure is working, and we're working with another great partner, Tucson Skate Park Alliance.
Oh, wonderful.
And I think their other project is the Cushing Street Park that I think they've had some recent movement on. But I just got to give props to TSA as well. They have been amazing. And they are sort of co-designing with Endure. And we want to integrate Tohono O'odham art with some murals where we want to give props to people who have really worked hard and may not be with us anymore, who are really integral to both the skate park as well as our elders, and then language and the beautiful Sonoran Desert. So it'll be a little bit... I know this is kind of a trend all over the U.S., but the idea of the skate park garden. And these young people are so awesome. I was like, okay, we're going to be growing things too while we're skateboarding. So exactly as you said.
Well-rounded.
Exactly. How does it become a community space that even if you're not a skateboarder, you're like, I want to hang here.
That's right. Plant, weed in the garden while you watch the kids.
Exactly. We want a place for the aunties to be able to sit down and enjoy.
That's right. And share the stories on the side. Oh, that's very fun. Well, thank you. That's fun to know. I think I was going to ask you another question about how can people in our community support NAAF and the Learning Center and the students in the district? I mean, I know, do you need volunteers, funding? Obviously, you've got some great projects that people might have a passion for that they would be connecting with you. On the website for the podcast, we have ways for the listeners to contact your organization and get involved. But what do you think is the greatest need right now?
Oh, wow. That is so lovely of you to ask. And honestly, you've given NAAF a space to share so much. So I want to just already thank you for that. That is huge. And as we both have kind of gone back and forth mentioning, is we love our partnerships in Southern Arizona. It's so important, I think, for both of our nonprofits and the wider nonprofit network. So being able to connect, NAAF loves. We love to collaborate. We love to learn more. You mentioned volunteers. While we're still in COVID, I have a lovely list of volunteers who want to come anywhere from education. So I have a lot of people who want to work in the garden.
Oh, that's
you guys will be welcome once we sort of get through this more intense time. As you mentioned, social media, stay connected. We put out information all the time, whether it's sharing. We will sometimes put out a direct kind of campaign. Right now, we're trying to get school supplies for all of our students, and we have a little wish list. So if you go on our social media, we are we have a set supply that was designed by the education team for both Ruth's Garden as well as our students. We also will be having an anniversary event late October, early November. We participate in Arizona Gives Day, Giving Tuesday, sort of the state and national campaigns. We are an Arizona qualifying charitable organization, QCO, so all donations are tax deductible.
That's sometimes important.
It's really important, right? But we would hook it up. But really, staying connected is so important and wonderful. And we're really, I can't emphasize this enough. But I know when I first started working here, we really, between both the community members and people who are community members in Tucson or Tohono O'odham Nation, or, we have folks that like to send school supplies or donate in Pennsylvania or Oregon. We had a really lovely donation from London. We also really like connecting with other human beings, and really being able to share stories and hear your stories. So that's sort of everything. If anyone does have any questions or anything, they can absolutely reach out to me. I think I left my contact info. But yeah, just contact us, and thank you for listening.
You're so welcome. Gosh, and really thank you for all you do. Do you have anything else you want to tell us about NAAF that we might not have covered? I know when you do so much, it's kind of hard to get it all in. And we just have a few minutes left, but if there's anything...
I so appreciate that. I will probably think about it as soon as we turn off the mics. This is where I would 100% defer to my smarter, cooler colleagues for the closing words. I'm trying to think what anyone would say, but that already would be a mistake. So no, I think just sort of contact us, and when it's safe, meet us in the garden.
That sounds like fun. I think I'm definitely taking a trip out, and it would be fun to see it, just to drive through the area. Yeah. I know it's beautiful out there. And like you say, right now, after all of these monsoon rains we've had, I think we're almost at a record number of inches so far for a monsoon. We're very close to breaking the all-time record. And so, as you said, the desert is absolutely verdant. It's just beautiful to drive around in.
That is the perfect word for it. That was pure poetry.
We are up against the Catalina Mountains, the Catalina foothills, and it is green all the way up Push Ridge.
Wow.
There are some parts that really just look like Ireland, like photos of Ireland, and it seems so surreal. But the water is good, and it's good for the garden and good for all the farming.
It really is. And we had no monsoons last year. So
right. It's good for the culture, for sure. Well, I want to thank you again, Jen, for joining me and for telling us and our readers more about NAAF. And I think we'll keep an eye out for all of your activities and watch for the opening of the skateboard park. And we thank you again for coming. And we thank Skip for underwriting and for Mark Bishop and for the Stewart Title Company. Thank you for your support.
Thank you.